Greg Hennis alongside Doug Keefe, and we would like to welcome you to BeachComber Coins and Collectibles, located right here at 6692 Black Horse Pike, right here in Egg Harbor Township. And if you're saying, well, where is exactly 6692 Black Horse Pike here in Egg Harbor Township? We're actually just right down the road from Boscov's and right down the road from the new Walmart, and actually we're right by the what used to be known as the old Cardiff Circle. Doug, thanks for joining us today, and really interested to hear learn a lot about BeachComber Coins and Collectibles.
Well, thank you. It's great having you here, and be glad to share my history and experience with you and for our audience.
A little insight as we begin our interview today. One of the things we were really talking about off camera was really kind of educate people about your industry, about what you do, and about the history. So let's start off and talk a little bit about your history. A lot of people may not realize this, but BeachComber Coins and Collectibles actually started in Brigantine, correct?
That's correct. In 1970, I opened a storefront in Brigantine. It was a part-time effort because I was employed full-time by Atlantic City Electric Company, and it was just a little hobby, a little part-time business. But as things went on and things changed, it became a little bit more interesting. And in 1974, we were in the midst of the Arab oil embargo, and it concerned me that maybe people weren't going to come to Brigantine. They were, conserving gas, and that's when the Shore Mall was going through its third and final expansion. That's when Steinbach's was being built. So I went to the mall, talked to the owner, made arrangements to rent a store in the mall, small store. But what happened was, now because it's in the mall, it has to be open mall hours, and I had a full-time job, so then I had to start hiring people, and that's. But we opened in 1974, and we stayed in the mall, and we grew over the years into a 10,000 square foot store, and we probably would still be there if they hadn't knocked the mall down.
The name BeachComber, how did you come up with that?
Well, when we first opened business, the only items that we sold, and this was in Brigantine, were coins, stamps, and metal detectors. And I'm an avid metal detector user. I loved using metal detectors. I was actually involved with a company that manufactured them for a while, and I just thought, gee, it's cute. I'm in a seashore community, which Brigantine seashore community. In my front window, I was going to set up a display with the metal detectors and with the coins and things that I found. And I said, BeachComber sounds like a nice name.
I want to talk about the process first. Talk to us about how the process works when you come here to BeachComber Coins and Collectibles.
Well, first of all, it depends what you're selling. Primarily what people are selling now with the price of precious metals and coins as high as they are, there's a lot of gold transaction, old gold jewelry that's not needed, coin collections, things that people have brought in or the relatives have collected over the years. And we have to have our prices for the jewelry and the coins posted. That's a requirement, state law requirement. We have to buy them in front of the people, no disappearing in the back room with magic hocus pocus, which some people do. We have scales that have to be certified by the state of New Jersey. They have to be sealed by the state. They have to be inspected every year to make sure our scales are accurate and correct. And we do everything in front of the people. We don't, any questions, we answer the questions that they have. We take them through the whole process. Doesn't matter what it is. Is it gold? Is it coins? Is it currency? Is it sports cards? Whatever. We take our time, make sure. We want the customer to be satisfied that they know what we did, and we don't want sellers' remorse when they leave. Oh, did I get the best price for it? We want them to be comfortable with what we did through the whole process.
Speaking of process, one of the items that are probably most associated with what you do here at BeachComber Coins and Collectibles, gold and silver. Talk to us about that. Talk to us about, marks, carats, things of that nature.
Every piece of gold jewelry is supposed to be marked with a carat mark on it. And what a carat mark tells you is what percentage of the item is gold. It's very easy to ascertain once you understand the process. Typically, gold rings will be marked 10 carat, 14 carat, 18 carat, and that tells me how much gold is in that item. And hence, the higher the carat, the more gold, the more you're going to get for an 18 carat ring than a 10 carat ring. 24 carat is pure gold. It's 100% gold. If you take the carat mark and divide it by 24, you'll end up with a percentage of gold. And for easy math, 18 carat ring, 18 is 75% of 24. that means it is 75% gold, 25% some other alloy. The other alloy can determine what color the item is. You can change the color of gold by alloying it with another metal to change it. You can make gold green, you can make it green yellow, gold yellow, you can make it just about anything you want depending on how. But that carat marking is what tells me the percentage of gold. Now, is every carat marking accurate? No, like everything else, you can make counterfeit marks. People have taken a 14 karat stamp, hit it onto a piece of brass, and gold plated it, and tried to pass it off as 14 karat. We have a piece of equipment, it's an X-ray analysis. It will X-ray the item and to tell me what the actual percentage of gold is in that item, irrespective of what the mark is on it. Now, it's a $20,000 piece of equipment, but believe me, it pays for itself over time because you can weed out things that aren't right.
So that machine will actually not only work with things like gold bars, but it would work with currency coins, all that kind of stuff?
Works with anything. They are actually used in junkyards, the same piece of equipment.
Really?
To analyze the difference between copper, bronze, aluminum, steel, any of these things. They sort out the material. This is mounted up front, but it can be taken off and handheld and walked over to any individual. Like we get a big piece of silver in a silver dish or a silver serving tray or something like that. We just take this machine off the stand, hit it on the item, and we can tell, reads right out what it is, whether it's silver or not silver.
So for all those things that are not as they appear, this will find them out.
It will ferret out the problems.
One of the things that obviously make you really able to help a lot of people is you have a great support staff. Now, obviously, you and Linda are known as the Beachcombers, but you do have other people that work on the staff here.
Right. We have Liz and Chris. They're here full time. They've been with me for quite a few years. They're well trained and they know what they're doing as far as buying. So even if we're not here, they can handle probably 90% of the transactions that would come in.
Now, here's a question that a lot of people may be very surprised to hear the answer to, but we're going to let the folks at home hear this. Are you limited, Doug, in what you will buy?
No, not at all. We are small, but we are big in our capabilities. We have purchased some of the largest collections in South Jersey over the years. We purchased a sports card collection about 10 years ago that ran into 6 figures. We have the capability. We bought out a firearms dealer. I'm a licensed firearms dealer in the state of New Jersey. There were 460 firearms in that inventory. So we have the capability to handle just about anything comes down the road.
Professional organizations that you are a member of, talk to us about those.
We're a member of numerous professional organizations, the American Numismatic Association, the National Guarantee Corporation, PCGS. We're on a network that is very selective of the dealers they allow on the network. Certified Coin Exchange. We're on nationwide with other dealers on this. There's over 1,000 dealers on it. So we stay attuned and stay abreast of everything, and we are very active in professional organizations. We used to do, years ago, I used to travel around the country and do coin shows, California, Florida, Boston, all over the place, and I would make friends and be dealing at these shows, and I've cut back on that because the time limitations aren't such, but we still have friends out there that we can contact and deal with if we find the need.
Now, we've obviously talked about gold and silver, coins and currency. Another big area, especially when it comes to the classic stuff, is the sport and non-sport cards. And I know that even years ago you were really big into that, because I think in the past you used to host autograph signings with people like Steve Carlton, Pete Rose, people like that.
That's right. Yeah, we ran, and it's interesting how we got into that part of it. An outside vendor would come into the mall and run the show, and he'd rent tables, have dealers come in, and he'd arrange for it, and we'd see our sales go down that week. So this is not a good thing. So I went to mall management and said, I want to run the shows, and we did. So we would run shows twice a year. We'd bring in celebrities for signing. Pete Rose was probably the best show we ever had. We filled that mall with both vendors and with customers, and as a result, we took over that aspect of it. But as with everything, there's a finite duration of the activity, and anybody that studied marketing knows what the classic bell curve is, that the classic bell curve starts and builds, and it's where the activity builds when the favors start, and it reaches a plateau, and then it drops off. And we're unfortunately down on the downside on a lot of collectibles. However, there's still interest in classic items.
What would
the
be
80s.
considered classic items?
Classic item typically are, and this covers sports cards, non-sports cards, and the comic books pre-70s. Back, we just purchased a collection of tobacco cards. These were made back in the early 1900s. They were included in tobacco packs as a premium. And these are always going to be desirable because your hardcore collector is still out there looking to build his sets. The bad area is in the 80s and 90s when the card manufacturers went crazy with production. It used to be Topps was the only one making baseball cards. Well, Fleer and Donruss got into the act, and then later Upper Deck got into it, and a few others. There were just too many cards out there, and as a result, the collector who is involved in collecting all of a sudden realizes he has to buy this much stuff instead of this much. And with monetary limitations, he said, I can't do it anymore. I've either got to focus on something I can handle or just drop out altogether. And a lot of people dropped out. But again, your older collectors, more sophisticated collectors, they're still looking for tobacco cards, and they're still looking for the classic, the Mickey Mantles, the Joe DiMaggios, the Babe Ruths, the things like that.
So pre-70s, pre-70s.
Pre-70s. And now condition has gotten into the game. It didn't matter before what the card looked like, what the centering looked like, what the corners looked like. If you got a Mickey Mantle, great, I got a Mickey Mantle. Now, it started with coins, where you would submit items to an independent grading service who had no financial involvement with the item, would pass judgment with their experts and say, okay, this coin is this, or this card is this, or this comic book is this, and seal it. And with that being sealed now, it can be sight unseen transacted. If you advertise that you have a Mickey Mantle rookie that is graded an 8, all you have to do is put a price tag on it, because the collector will know what an 8 is supposed to look like. And on a card, it's a scale of 1 to 10. Actually, you can go less than 1, it'll go poor, and then it'll be under 1. But 1 to 10, with 10 being a perfect card, perfect centering, perfect print, perfect corners, everything is perfect. And that 10 is virtually impossible to get, because the printing process of these items, they don't care. They're just running sheets after sheets after sheets. So there's no care about the centering. There's not that thought process in the manufacturing. So to end up with one that came out perfect. And the case in point is last year there was a sports card show in Atlantic City. They had an auction, a Wayne Gretzky rookie card, hockey player, graded 10, the only one graded 10. And that commanded a $460,000 price tag at that auction over there.
Wow.
Needless to say, a lot of Wayne Gretzky cards showed up at my door right after that auction. And
Everybody wanted a piece of that
oh
460.
yeah, oh no, sorry, that one has been in a bike spoke, so we're not really going to buy that one. So, but this now applies to companies will now, and all grading services are not equal. You need to be very careful the grading service you use, because some are just, they'll grade to order. What grade do you want? I want, okay, that's the grade you're going to get.
Can you recommend grading services to people?
NGC and PCGS are the two known entities on your coins. PCGS has subsidiaries where they will grade other things, and so does NGC. They will grade currency, which is a big thing now, especially foreign currency. They will grade comic books. PCGS grades stamps. A stamp, again, has to be perfectly centered on that little sheet of paper that is printed on. So these are the ones that are recognizable, and ones that, if you're going to buy an item graded, focus on one that company or those two companies have graded.
Real quick before we move on to our next category, non-sport cards that are ones that would be considered the classic stuff that would command a better return.
Well, Horrors of War. This is one that was printed during the 40s. During, when World War II is going on. The key card in that is Hitler giving a speech. And these are ones that, again, cards were never meant to be investments when they were made. They were meant to be toys for kids. Something, you go buy a pack of bubble gum, you got a card. Oh boy, look what I got. I'll trade my Mantle for your Ted Williams, that sort of thing.
I remember it was more fun just to get the bubble gum than the cards. But then later it kind of changed.
That was true. You know what happened with the bubble gum? Stained a lot of cards.
Yeah.
It went,
it was real stale. It was like crunch.
You get a piece of gum that was against the back of a card. You got a black stain on the back of that card. That affects the grading of it.
That was a killer.
So, but as your question was, the non-sports cards were never produced in the numbers that sports cards were. Baseball was always Topps, and then followed by football. hockey, basketball, and then you get into your non-sports. There was Superman cards. There was a series that came out to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the start of the Civil War in 1961 that had the Civil War pictured cards and a piece of replica Confederate currency. So I mean, all these things. Another thing that really commands a value, if you find them, unopened packs from that era. If you find unopened pack, ones that never. We bought a collection years ago of 1961 Fleer basketball. Fleer had been doing some baseball. They kind of lost out in a lawsuit against Topps, but they tried a test market of basketball in 1961. Didn't go over that well. In Vineland, a vendor had tried to sell them, and they hadn't sold. Put them away in his attic. Grandson comes along years later, finds them up in the attic. They're all in the packs, unopened. Packs, boxes of these things. The unfortunate thing was he opened them all up and built sets out of them. Don't get me wrong. We bought 10 sets from him, and what we would do is we would grade them ourselves to the best set, the second best set, the third best set, all the way down the line. But he threw out the wrappers and he threw out the box. Well, at that point in time, an unopened box would have brought about $10,000 for an unopened box. An unopened wrapper would have brought probably about $100. He did have one box, and I was able to auction off the empty box for $200. I'm going back 20-some years ago.
Wow.
He had a couple wrappers. They brought $20 each just for the wrappers, no cards. So these things don't survive, and you read about some of these finds where, you know, either the person's been in business years ago and they didn't sell, and he just put them in the back of the shop and forgot about them, and years later, through the archaeological dig of going through this stuff, there we have it. We got one of these gems back there.
Yeah. Let's talk about memorabilia, but before we do talk about that, it kind of came up recently when you talk about autographs. There was a recent article about, you know, some athletes that are, you know, signing things, but then later down the road they use an automated process, and the signature is not correct, it's not authenticated. It's, you know, talk to us about that whole process of memorabilia and signatures and autographs and stuff.
Signatures of sports celebrities and non-sports celebrities. It started probably again in the 80s, where the sports card shows would start, and people would sign for fees and what have you. And then it became a problem that, well, a Mickey Mantle autograph back then, probably a $50 item. Well, I can do that just as good as Mickey can, you know, and sign it. Well, what sprung up then was a service similar to the grading service for coins, is an authentication service. And we now, and especially if you're dealing with eBay, you have to have a certificate of authentication for every item that you sell.
Don't say that one 5 times fast.
No, I had trouble saying it one time, so we'll not do that 4 more times for you. But what this company does, and we deal with James Spence Authentic, he's in Parsippany, New Jersey, and we used to have him at our shows. He would witness the signing of our celebrities, and he would, for a fee, have anybody that came in with whatever they wanted authenticated. He would look at it. If he agreed it was right, he would give them a certificate that would say this item has been looked at by this gentleman who is recognized throughout the country, does all of the major auction houses, all their authentication. So he is recognized as being, he's a third-generation collector. Has a big firm. He's a good personal friend of mine. He's been my house guest on several occasions down here, and his word is gold. If he looks at an autograph and he says it's real, it's real. You don't have to have any questions about it.
Real quick, comic books, you touched on those real brief. Just give us a little bit more information on those.
Comic books, again, the classic era, the 10-cent era, the 12-cent era, 60s. We got, and as I mentioned, we evolved into these businesses due to, again, the classic bell curve going on a downside. We had to figure what we're going to do to make up the downside. And we got into comic books, we got into sports cards. But the comic books suffered from the same problem that sports cards suffered in the 90s, and they got to be mass produced. Although comics are showing a resurgence on the collector and the reader level, the classic ones are still the more desirable from a collection standpoint. You will get a comic book, you will never read it because it's sealed in that same plastic that the sports cards or coins are. But it's graded by a company that says this comic book is in this condition.
Are you talking about like the 10-cent, 12-cent titles, 40s, 50s, 60s?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Those are the ones. Batman, Superman, the superheroes, Spider-Man, these, and themes such as the first appearance of, or the origin of, or things of that, where it's an important event in the comic book land. These are the titles that usually bring the most interest. You get your classic illustrated from when you and I did book reports back in school. Nada. Nothing on those. And our book reports probably weren't that great either.
No.
But, okay. But in any event, these are the ones. And my mother was against violence, so when I bought comic books as a kid, I had to stick with Donald Duck, Mickey Mouse, things like that. I couldn't do the Superman, Batman, or one of those. So my books really didn't turn out to be great. But the ones that were able to save, and we bought a collection in Brigantine about 6 months ago. Woman's dad had saved them. They were from the 40s. They were all the 10-cent titles, and we ended up buying those. And the problem in this area, though, is because of the humidity, the storage of those things is very iffy. So you got to find one that the covers aren't missing pieces and things like that is very difficult.
Doug, we're down to our last couple of minutes, but there's a couple things we want to try to get in, so we'll do the Cliff Note version, if you will.
That's hard for me if you've seen it.
But it's okay. It's really educational. Firearms. You are a authorized firearms dealer. Okay?
That's right.
You've
Yes.
talked to me off camera. Military, in particular, is where the better demand is, especially non-United States, Germany, Japan, things like that.
It's unfortunate, but in the case of war, from a collectible standpoint, the losers are the winners in value. German firearms, Japanese firearms, with the exception of a few items, from a collectible standpoint, are more desirable. The exception is the Colt military 1911 semi-automatic firearm that the pilots carried and the officers carried. Those are good collectibles. We are more of a collectibles dealer at this point in time. You will not see any firearms in my shop. I do not offer them to the public, just because we're too small and I don't from a security standpoint. But we are an active buyer. We will buy any of the military, and there's other collectibles. As a result, in Germany, everybody had their own special dagger that they wore in dress uniform. Those daggers are collectible. The helmets are collectible. Uniforms are collectible. The badges, not so much. The awards, not so much. But the other items are more desirable.
Do you work closely with area police on not only the purchasing of things?
Absolutely. We have worked very closely. We've been instrumental. Theft is a concern amongst all of us. We obviously don't want to buy anything that's stolen because it doesn't do us any good. We have been instrumental in assisting police departments to catch people. In the mall, we actually had a couple physical takedowns in the mall where we alerted the police that somebody was in that they were looking for, and went back room, called, he's here, and next thing you know, the police are on them, and they had some violent takedowns in there as a result of it. But work very close. There's a requirement that we have to adhere to. It's called the RAPID system. It's a computerized system now. It used to be on paper. Now it's all by computer. When somebody comes in, they're required to provide us with their driver's license. We copy the driver's license into the computer. We picture what they're selling, and that goes in the computer. If there's anything identifiable, class ring is like a fingerprint. I can track a person down by a class ring because his initials in there, the school is there, and the year he graduates there. He can be tracked down currently where he is if he's still alive. So yes, we work very closely with the departments.
Okay, a couple more things here in our last minute or so. Lionel Trains. Talk to us about those.
We've dealt in all these things we talked about, and we still buy Lionel Trains. There was a good article in the Wall Street Journal last year. The average age of a train collector is in his mid-60s. That's kind of the downside of the curve. Now, the people buying trains today want the modern version. They're not collecting them. They want the modern version. They can show their son or daughter, set it up around the Christmas tree. They have all the sounds now, what they call the crew chatter, the bells and whistles and things like that. They're not your grandfather's train. These are ones that are highly sophisticated. They're digital, and they run excellent. The collectibles, again, it's a situation where the market is such that there's there's some people continuing, but it's a smaller audience as people age.
Okay. Next area, there's a lot of folks out there that probably have a great collection of Hummels that are stored away, and those that also have the Hess trucks that are stored away in the boxes. So if I want to bring them in, am I going to hit a big payday?
We used to say that we would set up a balloon. And when somebody came in with something like that, we would pop the balloon because we popped their expectations.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. We used to be a Hummel dealer. We used to buy direct from Hummel. We used to sell them hundreds of dollars for different ones, and we used to buy them. Unfortunately, it's again, the bell curve is on rock bottom. We did an appraisal of a Hummel collection in Ocean City a couple of years ago, which the executor was a lawyer, did his homework, and said, I know what these things are going to bring. I said, good, because I'm not going to itemize every one of these. I'm going to write down 162 Hummels at $10 each, $1,620. That's the value of your estate. So I agree. I see them on eBay for that. What happened is Hummel started after World War II, where the husband or the boyfriend husbands came home from Europe, brought a Hummel back with them. Well, that started the collection. Now, mom, wife, grandmom, whatever, continued over the years. Let's get Mama Hummel for her birthday. Let's get Mama Hummel for, let's get Grandmama Hummel for her anniversary. Let's get, yeah. Well, now Grandmom unfortunately has passed away. The next generation calls them dust collectors. No desire whatsoever for these things. So as a result, without a demand, there's no. Hess trucks, we used to sell Hess trucks. When the Hess station closed in West Atlantic City, we didn't import them from Florida. Brand new in the box there on our counter, $19.95, $24.95, whatever they were. Dead, absolutely dead. Linda reluctantly buys them at $2 each new in the box. But
Reluctantly, that's the key word.
Reluctantly. She has, I think she has a leftover group from her last purchase that was kicking around for a while.
Final question, I know you've kind of alluded to this, but let's just make it a little cleaner for folks. What is it, as a general rule, why do certain items increase and some decrease? I know you've kind of talked about different examples of bell curves and different things.
There's three legs to a valuation stool. Without one of those legs, the stool falls over. Supply, demand, condition. You need all three of those. If you have the only item ever made, this is the only item ever made, and there's no demand for it, there's no value for it. Conversely, if this is the only item ever made, you, me, him, everybody wants it, you throw it at an auction and let the market determine what the value is. Condition, I alluded to condition on the cards with the grading of the cards. That, you know, a 10 Wayne Gretzky, sky's the limit. A Wayne Gretzky has been the bike spokes, nobody cares. So it's you need all three legs of that stool to stand upright.
A lot of times, Doug, we'll close the show by me kind of wrapping it up, but I kind of thought, you know, you're a great speaker and a lot of folks know you. You know, you've got your radio program where you're on with Don Williams and different things. Why don't you say goodbye to the folks at home? Tell them where you're at, give us your hours, website, and all that. Go ahead.
Well, thanks for viewing. Hopefully it was educational to you, that you enjoyed, and be more than glad to continue this discussion if you want. We're open Monday through Saturday, 10 to 5. You can come in anytime in those hours, and I'd be more than glad to help you. Again, my staff is here to help you at any times, and been doing this for almost 50 years. May not do it for 50 more, but I'm going to keep going as long as I can.
And if they want to see you or Linda, they should just come in and ask for the Beachcombers?
Linda, we work basically, I have an office in Absecon that I'm at on Tuesday from 10 to 3. I have an office in Brigantine I'm at from 10 to 5. I am here on Thursdays. Also, Linda is here Tuesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays. But again, best to call just to make sure if you need to see us. And again, if it's for just average, if you need to see us though, call 609-645-1031 and ask for our schedule, and be more than glad. But again, only if you need to see us. And also for very large collections or things of ink, we will visit you. We will visit you, your bank, if you have a coin collection in your vault. If you have something that's valuable you don't want to transport, you feel that it'd be better if we came to see you, or if it's too bulky or difficult, we make house calls also.